Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Norwich Talk for podcast number 46. I'm joined by the good man, 46, Mr. Stuart Hodge, aka Hodgeythehack. I now have to call you Hodgeythehack, don't I? Because of your podcast launch. You can see it here. I hope you're enjoying the background, by the way. I'm very happy with it myself.
Hodgey, smart, mate.
It's quite beautiful, isn't it? I mean, I modelled it off Norwich's third kit, but still, nonetheless.
Never. I thought you just, went in the 1970s time warp and looked at some wallpaper.
That is a very fair comment. We're going to sort of veer beyond the normal Norwich Talk podcast today, because usually we talk about the games, we talk about what's going on with Norwich, but that's not the case today. We're going to talk to Mr. Hodgeythehack about his recent launch. This is being filmed, a couple of hours after your launch with Alex Neil, which was a very good watch, by the way, might I say. Obviously, the link to that video will be left in the description box down below. We're going to talk about that, talk about sort of the inspiration behind the channel, the podcast, what's to come, all that exciting stuff. And to end, we will actually talk about sort of Alex Tettey, Mario Vrancic, because you can't not talk about that on a Norwich City podcast.
Hold on, though. I love that I'm the headline event, but, should we not make those two guys the headline event?
Mate, I'll get it all in the title. All in the title.
Okay. Yeah. You're the boss, mate. This is your rodeo. Well, I've done my podcast for the day, and it was nearly 2 hours. So you can actually see my eyes getting bleary as we speak. So.
I was going to say, when you did that, it must have been the first time you've had to have your sort of presenter hat on for the first time in a while, because obviously recently you've been a promiscuous little man, haven't you? Been asked the questions, whereas this time. Was it difficult? Was it weird? Was it a smooth transition?
No, mate, that's my gig, my rodeo. There's two things that I think I do know too badly. I can write, and without sort of blowing my own trumpet, I think in terms of before Daniel Farke and Stuart Webber's arrival, I think some of the best content you would have found in the Pinking was from me. So I spoke to Ingo Preuss, who was Stuart Webber's equivalent at Borussia Dortmund 2, about Daniel Farke, which was an exclusive. Nobody else had that. And I spoke to Damien Camoli, who was one of the real architects of the sporting director role in this country, brought it over, about Stuart Webber, who he obviously worked with during the time they were both at Liverpool. So I can do a bit of writing. I commentate, and I've actually got much, much better at that since I was the Norwich City commentator. Me and yourself collaborated on a very funny video where we had a look at all the people that used to absolutely hate my Norwich commentary. So that was fun. But of all the things that I do, I think the thing I'm best at is asking questions and getting good answers out of people. I think the podcast I did during lockdown with Stuart Webber about managing a Premier League team through a pandemic, I think was really strong. And I think this bit of content with Alex Neil is similarly strong. Kind of different vibes, because Stuart Webber's a really approachable guy, you can talk to him and blah, blah, blah. Whereas people get this idea that Alex Neil's this kind of abrasive, sort of hard to talk to character. He's not. See, as long as you speak to him on a level where you can gain his respect and you engage with him on that level. And me and Alec were really lucky, because during the time that I was down in Norwich being the commentator, I had kind of two hats that I wore at that point. I had my Radio Norwich hat, which was my day job hat, where I would go along to the press conferences and interview Alex, and there was players put up at that point as well, and I would do that. And then obviously I would commentate the games. So it gave me I had the best of both worlds, and I was a kind of insider and an outsider. And that gave me the chance to build a really strong relationship with Alex and a few other people at the club. And it's these kind of relationships that, as a journalist, that you try to preserve and keep that respect. It's also the thing that's led to me managing to get a couple of really good exclusive stories about the Celtic manager chase recently as well. So it's just proper journalism, Ben. I think that's what I'm hoping my channel offers. It offers a bit of proper journalism. Not to say that the likes of the Pinkin and Michael Bailey don't do that. Of course they do, but I'm doing it. I've not got a publication that I'm serving. I'm just serving my audience, which is football fans, is Norwich City fans, and there's a few other wee sort of elements in there. Basketball will probably come in at some point, I believe, which is something you're getting into yourself, as I know.
Yeah, I'm very much looking forward to discussions about basketball at some point in the future. If we dial it back to now, I don't know how far back I actually want to go, to be honest with you. I want to talk about sort of, I want to start with, I think we'll go full picture and start with you falling in love with Norwich. Now, you're obviously not a native here, are you? I think most people have figured that one out by now.
What are you saying? But that's not right.
Not that you couldn't pass for one. Not that you couldn't pass for one. Absolutely. I've heard it firsthand. The beauty of that Norfolk accent is very, very good. That's sort of like David Tennant level English accent. Very impressive from you.
He's one of my favourite actors, man. And definitely my favourite
He's also
doctor.
mine.
Definitely my favourite doctor. Me and you are into so much of the same telly, mate. It's crazy. Like, we really do. We disagree on lots, right? But in television, we don't. It's like we are one brain.
Well, you know, pair of geniuses, aren't we? I mean, it literally is just as simple as that. But if we speak about Norwich, just maybe a short monologue before we actually move on to the podcast to be more specific about that. But what was sort of like, what brought you down here? What was it?
A job.
Yeah.
And the job was poorly paid, and I did crazy long hours and didn't really. I got the chance to do some really good stuff, but the wage was paltry for the work that you were doing, which unfortunately in journalism and media is quite often the case. And I think it's safe to say that I'll never be working as a radio journalist again. No disrespect intended, but yeah, that's how I feel about it. So I came down for the job, but the other thing that brought me down here was two of my very best friends in the world live here. Steve Sanders, NCFC numbers, and Ben Mounser, who's former Norwich City press guy, and now sort of works in a business that we're both involved in. And I think the fact that two of my best pals were here, the job was available. It was at a time in my life where I felt that I wanted to kind of move and try something new. That was what brought me down here originally, mate. Now, by that point, because we'd been to uni and lived together and stuff, I'd already gained a bit of a soft spot for Norwich. Like, they were one of a few English teams whose results I like to look out for. Usually that was based on, like, either experiences I'd had watching them or, like, mates whose opinions and love of football that I really respected. If they were into a team, I would quite like them. But, yeah, once you start working for a football club properly, and especially in the kind of unique way I did it, where I was, as I say, an insider and an outsider, that just changes things, and it makes you love the team on such a level. Like going long away trips, you've got to think about it, right? So you've got 4 or 5 of you who are all cramped in a car, driving like 5 or 6 hours somewhere, then 5 or 6 hours back, intensely working during the period in between. And it's like you grow really close to people like doing that kind of thing. And then there's the magic of commentating live games in the Gantry at Carrow Road. A lot of commentary that you do tends to be what you call off tube. So it's like you're doing it off a screen and you're trying to kind of create that buzz. And like, one of the things I was criticised for as the Norwich commentator was like getting too enthusiastic about the goals sometimes. Part of that came from, it was my first experience commentating on a gantry regularly in a stadium that was crackling with atmosphere all the time. And it took me a wee bit of time to get used to that, probably most of that season. By the end of the season, I felt I'd kind of got it right. And then it turned out to be the only season that I did. But that's a challenge in itself, and especially as a young commentator, because I was in my 20s at that point, it was something that I kind of learned to do. But some of those special nights at the Cara, some of those people that I spent time with, and the fact that some of my very best friends in the world are already here, the fact Norwich is a city that's like a village, I say it all the time. It's a unique place. It's the one other place, and that pains me because it's in England to say this, but it's the one other place in the world that feels like home. Like, because I've got family there. They're not blood family, but they are family, and they mean a lot to me. And I've met so many people and friends and networks of friends in different areas just through me being the talkative wee guy that I am, and through work as well to do with the football club. It's an amazing place, and the football team has been a massive part of that. And some of my very, very best memories professionally will always be having worked covering Norwich City. That's a fact, and that will never change.
Yeah, that's fair enough. Where did the idea for a podcast come out then? Because Over now, I've struggled to remember what day it is, what month it is now, but over this last year, I think everybody at some point has had a genius idea that's going to make them millions. And I'm pretty sure it's usually YouTube, isn't it? Because we're all at home looking for something to do, to be honest with you. We've all got various skills and whatnot. You've obviously sort of acquired over a fairly decent little, like a freelance career, is that what we'll call it? A
Yeah, like I
reputation.
do loads of things. Like I'm jack of all trades, master of none, or master of all trades.
You never know, do you? You never know. But you acquired skills here, skills there, and a love for Norwich City. So that seems like the perfect recipe for a podcast. When did it actually like sort of come to your head that you should start a Norwich podcast, and kind of why?
I was thinking of starting a Norwich podcast years ago after I left the football club. Me and sort of a couple of mates discussed the idea of doing something, and it never really got off the ground. But I look at what your channel does. I look at what other sort of similar fan channels do. I look at what Pinkin, The Athletic, Norwich City and Norwich City fans are blessed with such a vast plethora and community of people covering the club and all doing a really good job, all doing it in their own unique way and offering something different. So to break into that space is kind of hard. Now, I could do the thing where I've obviously got a wee bit of notoriety through the writing, through the commentary, through, like, as you see, promiscuously appearing on every podcast outlet imaginable. I've got a bit of notoriety in terms of like, Norwich City fans either love or hate me and listen to what I'm saying either way. So I could have just traded off that and did the same thing as everyone else, but I didn't want to do that. I wanted to wait until I had an idea that was different, an idea that reflected my skills, my abilities, and something that also was doing something different. And what I mean by that is you're going to see with my podcast, obviously we've opened with like a brilliant interview, Alex Neil, which you can see some details about there. That can be found in the Hodgeythehack YouTube channel. Hodgeythehack available on all socials for the plug. But I think my kind of thing on that is I wanted to make sure that even though we're going to have guests, hopefully of a similar caliber to Alec Neil coming on and doing different stuff, it's not just going to be big interviews, and it's not just going to be talking about what's happening at the football club. It's not just going to be speculating over signings, because you do that like better than anyone. If there's a bit of speculation about signing, you go and find out about them and give fans what they need to know about someone that Norwich City might potentially be looking at. What I want to do is I want to do something different, and I want to do something that gives something new to the community and teaches me stuff. So I've obviously got skills that I can bring. I sound like the guy out of Taken. A distinct set of skills that I can bring to the table and try and do stuff differently. But what I want to do as well is I want to learn about the past of the football club. So one of my features is going to be very much focused on like back in the day, what used to happen then. We're going to have one sort of feature that looks maybe at what's happening in the club season to season, month to month. So maybe looking a bit at stuff on the pitch, but that's going to have a unique twist to it as well. I've got another idea in the works, which involves looking at East Anglia on a kind of wider basis, just to keep it quite sort of general on that. And then we're also going to be looking at the future of the football club. We're going to be looking at what the next generation coming through might be like, and offering some coverage to that. So there's going to be also another, I've got other ideas in the works as well for features we can do in future. I don't want to put too many in the melting pot at once, because I want people to get used to the content and get used to the type of stuff they can expect. But yeah, I'm not going to pull in an interview like Alec Neil every week, not even every month. That's a big get for the first interview, and I'm really proud of it. I think he revealed some stuff. He spoke about Norwich City in his time for the first time, and he's not done that with any other outlet, so I'm proud of that. And I think it's a really worthwhile chat to listen to if you have literally nearly about 2 hours of your life. But it's definitely something that people can come back to and listen to, and I hope they enjoy it. But I wanted to do something different, and I think Hodge on Nodge is going to be something different. And that video that we worked on together for the podcast launch, I felt just totally told the story of how I fell in love with the football club. And that's why I started this podcast, because I want to learn more about the football club, because I'm a late convert. I don't know much about sort of Dave Stringer or different eras, Kevin Keelan. Like, I want to learn about these people. I want to learn about these eras. I want to learn more about the 90s team. It's all about that kind of stuff. And also offer something, hopefully, that fans don't get from other people other than just my annoying Scottish voice.
Yeah, to be fair, it does get annoying after a while, doesn't it? Sometimes, when you spend a lot of time with it. But, what can you do? Now, you mentioned the video we worked on, which leads me on nicely to, I want to talk about the creative process. Now, this isn't a very sort of beneficial exercise for me because, me and John, we were there. We know what happened. But in terms of the people watching, talk me through the process and how it went from an idea to a better idea to actually happening. And then I think we'll move on to sort of the Alex Neil chat. But the creative process, talk me through it.
Well, this is part of Hodge on Nodge. I obviously announced at the end of that first podcast there that there's a second podcast launching, and there's going to be more after that. Hodgeythehack is going to be a network of podcasts that all service different parts of my audience and different passions that I have. So, basically, I could just be totally disappearing up my own proverbial and becoming like an egotistical maniac. But it's not so much that. It's more about providing content. I think if people enjoy you providing content, you should do that. And I'm quite lucky that because of the way that the rest of my work sort of is, that I'm in a unique position to be able to do that. So I want to do that. Now, in terms of the creative process of it, I had an idea for how I envisaged the video being. I did not think it would be what it became, but that's the beauty of working with people, mate. I can remember when I was an actor, right? Before I went to uni in my teens, I used to work as an actor, and the single most creative endeavour that I've ever been involved in was the process of bringing a 30-page script to life over the course of just 2 days drilling it. So that's 2, 8-hour sessions, a director and an actress that I didn't know. And we sat there, first few exercises were getting to know each other. And because, I was a decent actor, she was really good. And Steve Small, the director, was amazing, utterly, utterly brilliant at his craft. And that process of bringing that script together was phenomenal. Because before that, a lot of my creativity had been channeled in such a way as being an insufferable teenager. I was in bands and stuff, but it was always about songs I was writing and the way that I saw it and all of that kind of thing. But that taught me the beauty of working collaboratively on something creative. And it was similar, this process, working with yourself and Jordan at Reverb Digital, because what we did is I had a concept, and you guys, good on yous. I always say to people, I think because my personality is a wee bit forceful, sometimes folk just go, aye, Hodgey, right? And I'm like, no, tell me I'm wrong. And you two, you particularly, love telling me I'm wrong, right? You absolutely revel in it. So I think that was obviously really helpful, but I think it was a combination of, I don't know about you. I think we had half an idea for what was kind of going to be like. It was going to be about me and Norwich and the story of how I went from commentator to fan. That was about the basis we had. But what we managed to capture, I think, was essentially a love letter to the club.
Yeah.
Over the course of a minute and a half or however long it was. Now, that is testament to your guys' ability in terms of videography, and obviously there's a couple of bits of my commentary thrown in and some really nice shots. But I just think it told the story wonderfully, and I think it's almost like the bedrock on which this whole podcast sits, because it allows me to sort of go, right, here's where I am now. Here's how I've got to this point. And now the idea with the podcast is it's furthering my exploration as a Norwich City fan and journalist, because I think that's the other thing. I've obviously got my journalistic chops. I'm qualified, won a couple of awards when I was a student and stuff. So I think all of that kind of stuff builds into it. And I think that's what I can bring that's a wee bit unique. And I think that creative process of building that video with you guys was amazing. I feel like I'm droning on. Sorry, man. It's just I'm quite passionate talking about it.
Yeah, I think the thing is with like sort of the process, the creative process. I like calling it a creative process. It makes me feel, you know, professional. But like it was important to establish it wasn't personal when I would try and not
I
undermine.
don't care if it was. Like I'm quite happy. See, as long as it's furthering the end product, it's fine.
Yeah, yeah. I think we have a similar personality in terms of when you get dead set on an idea, you get dead set, but you want feedback, but like actual feedback. You know what I mean? Not wishy-washy feedback where it's like you could do this, you could do that. It's do that, make it better. I think that's where we work well. But in terms of the actual podcast itself, well, I think we should talk a bit about the teaser clips, because you mentioned the social media clip earlier, and going through what was it? Some comments that were perhaps not the nicest, but to be fair, it was quite a funny little video. What was that like for you, sort of going through that, and the idea in general? Was there sort of any inspiration behind it?
I kind of nicked the idea. Spurs did something similar when Matt Doherty was unveiled as a player. Like they had him going through deleting tweets, and like all the best things in life are plagiarized. So what I did is I did that and did my own twist on it. But obviously mine was not so much about tweets that I'd done, but more about people that had kind of trolled me during the time. And there were certain people that did it every week, like certain names that like every week would crop up going, this bloody commentator, get rid of him, right? And I'm like, aye, okay. And I'll be honest with you, like a few years ago, that got to me a lot more than it does now, because I think when you're younger, you're obviously a younger guy than me, mate. Like you're a lot more sensitive to these things. I mean, I don't know what you Generation Z types. Are you a Gen Z or a millennial?
I don't know what I am. All I know is that I'm not like, you can say whatever you want to me and I just don't care. I don't really know what category that puts me in.
So, right, that's probably a product of your upbringing and the fact that you guys have been subjected to social media since you were like thigh-high, tiny wee people. Whereas for me, like social media is a thing that's evolved during my life, and also so has like sensitivity. And me as a person, like, even though I'm very kind of confident, brash, sort of forthright, like even at school, I was quite happy to speak to like hundreds of people at once. Like I was confident doing that, but I was like scared to ask a lassie at the school dance. You know what I mean? Like that's the kind of type of dude I am. Whereas like you get older and you kind of get over these aspects of yourself that you used to struggle with. And another thing about that is I used to be really sensitive. Even if people were giving constructive criticism, I used to take it as like a slight on my work. And if you're going to be involved in the creative industries, especially like something where you're broadcasting, podcasting, commentating, whatever, you've just got to be prepared for all the flack that comes your way, which is why I've got so much respect for the likes of you young guys that do this. Connor Southwell taking a massive job on at such a young age and has matured into it in such a way that he's now absolutely blasting it and like nailing Robbie Savage to the deck in national radio and stuff like that. And I know he used to be part of your team. He's a good mate of yours. It's brilliant to see. And I think that's the other thing that I really like to see. I mean, I met Connor when he was 17 because I saw a piece of writing he had and I thought, that kid's good. He's got potential. So I made a point. I says, look, wee man, do you want to go for a coffee? And we had a coffee at the Costa outside Carrow Road. So, like, if any of the top newspapers want a talent scout that can sort of identify the next hotshot journal, just get me, put me on the payroll. No, I think like I think the key thing is right. You've got to have a thick skin, and doing that video was actually really good fun. And I've got absolutely I harbour no grudges against people that criticise me, because do you know what? Back then, I was a commentator that was still learning his craft, and by no means am you're never the finished article as a commentator, but I now am a lot better. So a lot of the criticism is pretty valid in some ways. Whereas I'm sure some of it was just because I'm Scottish as well. But hey ho.
Yeah. I'll leave that bit alone. It's a prominent message at the moment, isn't it? With the social media boycott, etc., and sort of online abuse and that sphere. It's not a nice place at all, is it? It needs to stop. I'm not going to sort of preach because the message is clear and simple, isn't it? What was interesting about that sort of social media clip was that a lot of it was kind of harmless, and I think the stuff that was less harmless was left alone, wasn't it?
Yeah.
You've got some other Hodge on Nodge clips to come out, which I'm very excited for one of them in particular to launch. Like one of them I really like. I just really like. And that was, I think it was music you found, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was music that I found, and let's not say any more about it. But that'll be coming out this week. And I might give it a wee shove just every so often, like because I really like it, and it's quite funny. It's very light-hearted. Unfortunately, one of our clips didn't make the cut because we didn't get permission from the EFL to share the footage, and I can describe what that is. It was a clip of the goal that Graham Dorrans scored at Nottingham Forest to put us 2-1 up. We were pounding them, man. We came out that second half and we pounded them at the start of the second half, and the ball fell to him at the edge of the box and he hits it and it curls away from Stojkovic, who was rooted to the spot. Brilliant goal. And I got overly excited. And I told this story on another channel where, like, I was right next to the Forest fans. Like, so, and I'm going, Graham Dorrans, like, in a wee world I'm on. That was that was.
Was that on the TNC pod?
It was on the TNC, and by the way, I mean, those lads, what an effort making that amount of money for the big
24K is insane, isn't it?
Outstanding. And what a way to use your platform. Well, we live in an amazing community of fans. We support an amazing football club, and I'm so glad I'm a Norwich City fan. I wouldn't rather support any other team in the world, and I mean that. That clip was going to be the one that didn't make the cut, was that Graham Dorrans goal, and then we had a bit either side of it where I was actually standing pitch side at Carrow Road, as you know, because you filmed it, but we didn't get permission to use the clip, so unfortunately it hasn't made the cut. But yeah, we've got one more sort of social media teaser coming that we're going to use, and then from every podcast that we do, we'll be clipping stuff out and sharing it as a means of encouraging people to try and either listen to the podcast in the podcast channels, which, as it works with the first podcast, they need to catch up a wee bit. And there's actually a problem with Apple Podcasts specifically at the moment, accepting new pods. But the idea behind my content is it's going to be available for people that like to listen to a podcast. It's going to be available for people that like to watch a podcast. But I would say to people, if they prioritize going to my YouTube, they will get the content at its best possible level, because there will be all the different levels of interactivity and stuff there. But I will be streaming it down YouTube, I'll be streaming it down Twitter, I'll be streaming it down Facebook, and I'll be getting comments from them all saying, right, we've had enough of you, Hodgey, give it a break.
And they'll all be me. They'll all be me saying that.
I look forward to seeing you across all of those things at one time, mate.
It's going to be very fun. I think we should talk about the Alex Neil Hodge on Nodge #1 podcast.
So proud of it.
Mate, honestly, I would be as well. Now, I'll be candid here. I'm not really a podcast man.
No, neither am I. I make them. I don't listen to them.
It's weird, isn't it? I expect people to enjoy me talking about Norwich, but I sometimes won't watch someone else talk about Norwich. It's bizarre, but it's the way it is.
Yep.
And I watched that one. It's really good. And Alex Neil is a guy. Now, I do want to talk about him in general. It's obviously weird timing beyond this podcast, because why talk about Alex Neil when you've just won the league? But I think it makes sense here. Alex Neil was a guy who I hadn't really given much thought, and a lot of the stuff he said, I was just sort of sat there like, right, that all makes sense now.
So what? Give us an example of a couple of bits where that sort of happened for you.
So the first would be James Maddison and sort of that situation, and how he was like, everyone was ranting and raving about how he was doing well at Aberdeen, when in reality he wasn't getting that much game time. Came back to Norwich, said he didn't want to go back, said he wanted to fight for his place. I think another one would have been sort of his approach to the Premier League. Another one as well, I thought was really interesting, was when he talked about his confidence about the playoffs. When you asked him if he was nervous, I was expecting him to say, yeah, he was shitting himself. But no, that wasn't the case, was it? He said he was confident Norwich would win. I think the game plan, he said, was clear. Don't lose at Ipswich, then beat Ipswich. And then I think he said, 20 minutes into the playoff final?
Yep.
maybe sooner than that, that he knew the game was won, which was really interesting to me. I thought he would, especially being such a young manager, he made a point of saying that he wasn't 40 yet, or he isn't 40 yet until, what was it, like next month or something.
That is
And I
incredible,
thought,
by the way. See, you have nearly 500 games under your belt before 40 is pretty damn good going, man.
yeah, it's almost as impressive as his tan, which is caught a few people off
First
guard.
thing I commented on, mate, I was just like, "That what? What's happening to you? You're not Scottish."
Yeah. I wish I could catch a tan like that, but I physically can't do that.
That
But
would
yeah,
be
there was a lot of
dangerous
those
for you.
moments. You what?
That would be dangerous for you. Try to
It
get
would
that
be.
on.
I would go bright red like a little cherry tomato. It would be quite funny.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All the
You're taking me
redness.
back to when I was, I think, 17. I went to Munsley and I got burnt because I didn't wear any sun cream because I thought I was invincible. And I took 2 days off school because I was like burnt all up my back. And I got absolutely hammered when I came back to school because I had taken 2 days off because of sunburn. So that's a nice little trip down memory lane. That is it hurts so much. But yeah, Alex Neil, yeah, there was a lot of those moments where I was sort of just, I think awe is a strong word, but I was just like, I just appreciate him more now. And when you asked him for his message at the end to the Norwich fans, which was, what was it? Just good luck. There was no bitterness. And I remember him saying at the time, just after he got sacked, when he went on Talk Sport, we're talking when did he get sacked? Early, mid 2017?
It was March 2017.
Yeah, so we're talking 4 years ago, which is bizarre. Like 2017 shouldn't be that far away.
Aye.
It is bizarre, isn't it? There was no bitterness, and he said on his TalkSport interview there wasn't any. And I always thought that's sort of, he's going to say that, isn't he? He's never going to sort of badmouth Norwich at that point. So I thought it would have been a good opportunity for him to maybe be truthful, but apparently he was, and it was really, really interesting. Now, the first thing I want to ask you about that interview is there anything new that you learned, or is there anything that sort of surprised you in terms of what he said?
Yeah, there were a few things. I think the one that stood out the most for me, I don't want to give all the good content away in this interview, but I suppose
it's just incentive to watch it. It's just incentive.
Yeah. No, listen, I'm really proud of it, and a bit like the Weber interview, it's a real feather in my cap as a journalist that people feel comfortable enough to open up to me. And I think with Alec, the bit that really struck a chord with me was when he admitted how he's changed as a man and how he feels that if the kind of manager and the kind of man that he is now, he think would have been better suited to that season after we came back down into the Championship. He would have liked another go at that, because at that time I think he felt that he was more reactionary. So he might sort of react more after a loss. And what happens is if you keep having a go at the players after a defeat, then eventually, like you just lose them. You know, you can't. At the same time, you can't. But you can't do that thing either, where you just go like, oh, we could beat. Oh, it's okay, boys. It'll be fine. We'll win the next one, right? You can't do that either. But I think he's got a bit more of the balance right now, and I think he admitted that himself. And I think for him to be that open about that took me up that, because everybody thinks Alec Neil was this big, strong, sort of like forthright, not taking any shit, like kind of guy. And for him to be that candid and almost show a sense of vulnerability like that was really surprising to me, and credit to him for it. Like, it shows a lot of personal growth to do that. And it just shows, by the way, that, and I always thought this about him, a lot of people build like this facade, this image of what a manager is, right? And a lot of it's born in the kind of like the Sir Alex Ferguson vibe of like he built this persona that was almost superhuman. And I think Alec Neil, because he's sort of gruff Scottishness as much as anything else, had that kind of thing. And I think a lot of Norwich people, they like perceived him in that way. Now, if you knew him personally, like a wee bit, like I did at the pressers and stuff, I'm not claiming to be a personal friend or anything, but if you got to know him and meet him in person and talk to him quite a bit, you learn that that probably comes across on camera, maybe, that persona, but he's just a normal guy.
That's like
You
Stuart
know what I
Webber,
mean?
isn't it?
Aye, Weber
But on
even more
camera, very
so.
serious.
Aye, but and Stu, you can get a good laugh with as well. But I think Alec, like, it was like that persona of him as this really hard sort of Scottish man was something that I don't know. I'm not saying he played up to it like before, but like I think he was quite happy being cast in that image. Whereas I think now I get the impression that he's quite happy to be seen as a sort of more mature, more level-headed figure. And I think that'll be to the benefit of his management. And by the way, he's a superb football manager. Really, really good. And
Yeah.
I think quite unlucky to have been given the bullet at Preston. I know they've bounced back a wee bit towards the end of the season there under Frankie McAvoy. If Frankie gets the job permanently, Frankie's a lovely man as well, by the way. Then it could. I'm no mean to be the prophet of doom, but they'll need to get off to a good start for next season to go well for them. Whereas if Alex Neil's in charge of Preston North End, I have absolutely no concern that Preston North End are going to get relegated. And he had that team on the cusp of the top six for a few seasons. That's incredible with Preston's budget and resources. And to have Hamilton Accies beaten Celtic at home and like third in the Scottish Premierships, incredible. To get Norwich City, if you really were when he took over, to third in the table and winning the playoffs at Wembley, too early, a season too early. If they had stayed another season in the Championship and had another season to build, I think they would have gone up to the Premier League ready, whereas they weren't. They weren't ready. They didn't have the money to properly fund the Premier League thing. And as we spoke about in the pod, the money arrives in the bank account not long before the season starts, so it doesn't give you time to get signings in to get them acclimatised and bedded in. Creates all sorts of issues. So I think that's that's some of the stuff that came across to me from it. But I saw a different side to Alex Neil in that interview, and I think anyone that watches it hopefully will as well.
Yeah, that Robbie Brady stuff was another eye-opening thing for me, really, because now I'm not claiming to be one of those people. Well, not that I would anyway, but I'm not one of those people who, as he mentioned, some people think you just get given 120 million quid. I don't think I've ever been that person, but equally, I've never really had the understanding of how it works. And the chat you had with him about that was really eye-opening for me. And I think Alex Neil at Norwich was really unlucky in terms of timing. For him personally, for Norwich as a club, for him personally, I think he said it was a bit of a whirlwind, wasn't it? He thought it was a wind-up. He just finished being a player. All of a sudden, you're managing in the Championship for a team who want to be in the Premier League. He's still, as a man, quite young. I think sometimes as football fans, we forget that mid-30s, early 30s is still quite young.
Very young for a football manager, mate.
But it really is, isn't it? And when I say I think he was unlucky, I think he was unlucky in the fact that Norwich City as a club at that point, so we're talking 2015, 2016, 2017, I really don't know how to describe it here, but there was a waft of, yeah, we belong in the Premier League. We should be in the Premier League, when in reality, no one has a right to be in the Premier League. And I think that was the case. And for a guy who'd come in and obviously he'd only gone upwards at Norwich, he never had a chance to establish himself. And he said, didn't he? He said if he had kept, or if Norwich had kept him on in the 2016-2017 season, by the end of it, he'd had a summer to again rebuild. As we've seen with Norwich City in the last nearly 5 years, if he'd had that chance to build, who knows what would have happened. So in that regard, I think he was quite unlucky. But without the lesson that Norwich learned from Alex Neil, specifically experience, we wouldn't have Daniel Farke, we wouldn't have Stuart Webber. So everything happens for a reason. I just think he was quite unlucky. And by the end, I was in awe of him, because you don't remember the season we finished 8th. You don't remember him getting sacked. You remember Wembley. You remember beating Man United at Old Trafford. That's what you remember about Alex Neil. That's Alex Neil. It was ridiculous. I remember the Man United game specifically because I was in the toilet when we scored the second goal, and I remember hearing the commentary, and I was like, "This can't be real." The Tettey toe poke. We'll be mentioning that again towards the back end of the podcast. We definitely will be. But yeah, Alex Neil, like the podcast was really good. And Alex Neil, I will always love that man because he not single-handedly, him and the team provided the best day of my life. Wembley's not getting topped. Wembley was such a special day. You don't get better than playoffs at Wembley, do you? Maybe an FA Cup, maybe something like that.
I loved
that's
the
what you
bit as
remember
well in the podcast where he was talking about the experience of walking out and the visual impact that had and how surreal it was for him. And it's just, do you know what? Like, one of the key things, and I think I was hinting at this before, basically someone that people kind of mythologize and sort of make into this entity that they're not. They just came across as a man, didn't he? Like, he was just like
there's no mask, is there? There's no mask.
Exactly. The man behind the Football Manager, I think, came to the fore in that interview, and that's something that I'm really proud of. And Alex, a cracking guy. Me and him had a few good laughs and sort of press conferences after them. We also had a wee night. Wouldn't say too much, but it was.
That sounds a bit ominous.
No. It was like a kind of after hours occasion, and we had an enjoyable chat away from the sort of press conference or football side. So it was really, really nice to get a kind of look under the bonnet how everything sort of works behind the scenes, maybe a wee bit of a football club in terms of the way personalities and families interact. That was really intriguing. I've got a lot of time for Alec, and I'm so glad that he was kind enough to come on, especially for a podcast that, let's face it, it was my first one. It hadn't even launched yet. He was happy to be part of a live stream. It just so happened that the social media boycott was this week, which prevented that happening, which is really unfortunate timing for me. But like as you say, there's bigger sort of forces at play. But with that, and it's more important to make a stand. But delighted to get him on. I thought he was a brilliant interviewee. I think but even though it's my own sort of thing, like I think it's well worth people going onto the YouTube channel, just as it says at the bottom of the page there, which just search Hodgeythehack, all one word, or Hodge on Nodge, or Alex Neil, and it will pop up. And I really enjoyed it, and mate, your kind words about it have been reflected by quite a few people. I think people have really enjoyed watching it. I appreciate it's like quite a weighty interview as well. It's 1 hour and 44 minutes, I think.
It flies by. It really does.
Well, that's good, because like I was kind of worried it was going to be one of those where people would be like, "Oh, do you know what? I'm bored of that." But we premiered it on YouTube. My channel's obviously quite young, and like it averaged around sort of like 50 people watching at one time for a premiere on like one video, which I think is really strong numbers. Even the idea for me that 50 people in the world, right, and maybe some of them have got other people sitting next to them doing it, are stopping their day and watching that bit of content that I made all at one time is crazy. Just like the numbers in the launch videos that you helped me make are crazy, mate. Each one of them hit 5 figures on Twitter alone. That staggered me. At one point, I was averaging 2,000 views an hour in my launch video. And I'm like, little old me. And I know, like, for other sort of channels and teams and stuff like that, will be like, oh, small fry, whatever. But for me, it's just, I feel a real connection with the people that like watching my stuff. And I try to always interact as much as I can with them. And I'm so grateful for it. I'm grateful to... Nope. Wrong bit. Left and right or reverse, by the way, when you're doing these things. I'm grateful to Area.
You should know that. Yeah, you should know that. Come on.
I'm grateful to this badge and this club for giving me the platform to do it. And obviously, like I do the other kind of work in the commentary and stuff, which helps as well. But mate, I'm really excited about what lies ahead and really, really proud of that first step. But as they say, it's like when a football team wins a trophy. Always on to the next one.
Yeah, that is the case, isn't it? I know what you mean by this idea of like someone taking the time out of the day to respond, like, watch. It's the same when anyone comments on one of my videos. I'm just like, it's just nice, isn't it? Like we do it for a reason. It is. Yeah. It's a beautiful thing. I mean, there's a slither of vanity in there, but when someone goes out of their day to just interact, it's just like, yeah, it's worth doing it, you know, because, you know, myself, I definitely enjoy doing it. I know you enjoy doing it. and in a market that's very saturated, which I mentioned on a video not so long ago, and that's a good thing, by the way. That's a brilliant thing.
It's brilliant. Let's see the fan community we've got. It's phenomenal. I mean, look at the displays and the tifos that the All-Come Norwich people are doing. You've got Jack and Chris raising all that money for charity. You've got so many good initiatives. You've got such great interactivity. The football club was doing well in the football field at the moment as well. But even when we went down, there was like no real toxicity around the relegation. It's just like, right, do you know what? We go again. And like, I just think as a football club, Delia Smith leading the Emi Buendia song, and then the Championes when like the title was sealed. We're an amazing football club. We're amazing fans, amazing channels, amazing community. Glad to be part of it. Hope to add to it.
Yeah, I remember before starting YouTube, to be honest with you, so we're talking a little over 2 years now. Like, I've obviously grown up around Norwich City. Norwich City has been my life, and for as annoying as it is sometimes, it's shaped me as a person. And I loved it before making YouTube videos, and then after YouTube videos, I got to see sort of the inner workings of the club, got to experience a few cool things. Me and Connor got invited to a dinner where Webber was there, Stuart Webber was there, Delia, Michael were all there, and I got to sort of experience them just being people. And it's just like, good God, this is a great football club, which I think will make it all that more slightly painful when someone like Stuart Webber leaves, when Delia and Michael no longer have their shares in the club for whatever reason. But we love the football club. I'm 20. I've loved the club for 20 years. You've been a fan for what? We're talking 4 or 5 years now, but the love is the same.
4 or 5, and that's the thing. It's like it's different. I've worked, so I grew up a Celtic fan for most of my life, and I have worked for Celtic, albeit in a kind of different capacity, not for anywhere near as long. I did not find the same joy. Like, and that's the club that I grew up supporting. I mean, I've covered Champions League games at Celtic Park and stuff, like, which was the fulfillment of a dream. Don't get me wrong. That wasn't for Celtic. That was for Radio France at the time. But look,
Radio France.
Yeah, Radio France's international service. Like, they've got an English language service, and I used to work for them.
You so many strings to your bow, son, isn't there? So many
languages, and
I say just start speaking Spanish. Do that, please.
Bueno, hay mucho que puedo decir sobre Celtic y sobre Norwich. Pero lo que yo diría es que Norwich amo más que Celtic. Love Norwich more than Celtic. Love Norwich more than Celtic. And like the reason for that is just the warmth around the football club. And I got asked this question. I got told it was like, I think it was you, like social media, giving me a noose for the neck. Like, you love Norwich or Celtic more. And I think the truth of the matter is, like, I love Norwich more because it means more to me. It's like, it's a love that I've discovered rather than just one that's kind of been with me. Does that make sense? Like,
yeah, it does.
It's something that's I've grown into. And do you know the one thing that I would say? See, just when you're talking about people leaving and stuff, so no Delia, no Michael, no Webber, no this, no that. At the moment, the benchmark has been set incredibly high in terms of fans and club being together, right? So any administration that comes in after this, whether it's a sporting director, whether it's like board, whatever, right? Even a head coach, to be honest, with the way Daniel Farke has been, the benchmark's been set so incredibly high that fostering and maintaining that sense of unity among the Norwich City support and community has got to be the bedrock that this club remains built upon from here moving forward forevermore. That's what it has to be, and that will be a passion of mine. If I ever feel that is waning or that has been lost in some way, that's going to be a passion of mine to try and make sure that endures. And that's one of the advantages of me doing my stuff the way that I do my stuff, because I'm not affiliated to any media organisation. Yes, I do commentaries for the EFL. Yes, I do things and blah, blah, blah. But I want to have positive relationships. I want to have good relationships. But if something irks me, I don't need to worry about like whether I can say it or not. I'll just be like, no, that's shit. That annoys me. And I'll be able to say that. And having that freedom is another reason I've started and branched out as Hodgeythehack. Like I've branched out so that I can get away from my affiliations with other media providers in terms of like my views do not reflect my employer. Obviously they don't, because it's me, you know? So
Yeah.
that's one of the other reasons, just kind of harking back to an earlier question for
Yeah.
the reasons I started like the podcast, the channel, stuff like that.
Yeah, you need one of those lines in your Twitter bio that thoughts do reflect my opinions. These are mine. You can stick that on there quite proudly, can't you? I think in terms of the podcast, I think you mentioned sort of the non-affiliation. Isn't that the inspiration behind Hack and Tackle?
So Hack and Tackle, yeah. So that's
Is that right? Have I got that wrong?
What do you mean the non-affiliation? So
So
Hack
like
and Tackle,
you saying that you don't have to sort of suppress emotions. Isn't that what Hack and Tackle's about?
Hack and Tackle's two things. So it's a round table of qualified, clever football people with varying sort of degree of perspectives. So internationally recognised and renowned journalists, former pro, and there's a core team of three of us that are going to do the majority of the stuff. But we're also going to have guests on for certain episodes and certain occasions to talk about issues that matter. And we're going to talk about issues that matter in a way where we have no fear of being sort of cancelled or shut up. It's like we're going to see it as we see it, and we're going to go into hard topics in a deep way. But the other thing that we're going to do, we're going to look at the news agenda, and we're going to look at, so take, for example, a few weeks ago, so I've obviously been across the Eddie Howe situation with Celtic. I broke an exclusive story days before the national papers did, about a month ago. And what happened was, like, about a week or two after that, Eddie Howe's agent came out and said, like, a deal hasn't been done, right? And every Celtic fan in the west of Scotland nearly has messaged me. He's like, oh, is it not happening, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, calm down, right? This is just the age. This is just the calm down, dear. This is just the agent basically doing that to try and tempt an offer from, say, a Newcastle, right? Like, or someone, just to try and poke one of the big Premier League beasts to see if there's an offer forthcoming. That's what the agent was doing. Now, having been around the game a wee bit and sort of knowing the fact that newspapers sometimes write what agents want, and it's not always like the whole don't believe what you read in the papers is absolutely true, because sometimes they're doing stuff to serve the fact that they might get the next big story from that agent, for example. So see, having an understanding of the way that that kind of game works, and the way that sometimes if you read a story, don't read the story, read into the story behind the story. That's what Hack and Tackle is going to do.
It's very exciting stuff, isn't it? Very
It's different again. I don't know any other podcast that's doing that. Don't know any other podcast that's doing the Hodge on Nodge stuff. The other podcasts that I'm going to launch all have unique selling points that make them different from anything else that's out there. Whether that makes them popular or not, I don't really care. As long as the stuff, well, I say that. I'll probably start obsessing over numbers like Rain Man. But I think for the most part, as long as the body of work speaks for itself, then that gives me something to be proud of, and then hopefully I can eat.
Yeah, that's the intention, isn't it? I think it's the same for us on this channel. It's the same for any channel. You want to put content out that you're proud of, content that reflects you and sort of your personality. I mean, I've found that out over the past 2 years as as confidence on camera grows. Putting stuff out that you're happy with is important. That's why
You've got better at this as well, mate. And I'm not saying that to be to like be what's that word, condescending. Like I'm saying it because like you seem more confident, more forthright, quicker.
I was gonna, that's what two and a bit years does to you, I suppose. Which is, I remember before doing this, I was dead set on never being on camera. I'd always say to Connor, "That's your job. I'll stick behind the camera." And then Jordan showed up and started being way better at the camera than me. So I thought I might as well make the transition. But yeah, I'll never put out a video that is. It's sort of like a ground rule, and I said this in my last, I think it was the Christopher Ayer video, where it's like with the transfer rumor, I'm going to sort of loosen and relax the rules a bit. Before, it would be only transfers that I think would definitely happen, whereas now it's ones that I find interesting. You're not going to get a sort of, is Joe Hart going to join Norwich video from me? I'd never make that sort of video. Nothing wrong with it. Just personally, I don't know what anyone really gains from that. But yeah, it's such a weird and interesting thing making podcasts, isn't it? Very enjoyable. I still find it bizarre that we don't listen to them. It's just I'm glad there's someone out there like me. To be honest with me,
it just makes us seem really vain, doesn't it? Like I
don't know about vain. I think it makes me feel kind of stupid. But as I mentioned earlier, I don't really care.
Can I give a shout out to everybody that's helped me with this? So there's obviously yourself and Jordan with making the videos, but see Hodgeythehack, right? As a brand, that's got a whole team of people who have volunteered and helped me with this.
A whole Discord of people.
A whole Discord server of people, and like much more beyond that as well, mate, to be honest. Like there's loads of people have got in touch and want to volunteer and want to help out. And by the way, anybody watching this that fancies helping out, get in touch and we'll see if we can get something that you can do. Because my main thing is I'd quite like to build an ecosystem of people where I can't afford to pay anyone because I'm not making any money off it. But what I can do is I can teach them stuff. I can give them new skills. I can help them maybe with some stuff that I can do, whether it be a CV or like a testimonial or whatever it might be. Like I'm trying to make sure that I'm helping people along. And in turn, obviously, I'm getting a lot of help myself, and I'm grateful for absolutely every ounce of it. Like that first podcast was by no means just down to me. Yes, I wrote the questions. Yes, I get the guest. And yes, I did like loads of aspects of it and probably was across most of it. But like I had somebody make my jingle, I had somebody voice my jingle. I'd like my whole team basically telling me this works, that doesn't work. Are you ready? Are you organised? Like just basically keeping me right. And I just want to thank every one of them. Like they're brilliant, and I'm so grateful for them, and I couldn't do it without them.
Yeah, I see the stuff that goes on in the Discord, and it's a lot, and it's intense, and it's admirable, and I'm envious to a certain degree. Although I've got Jordan, and Jordan is just shout out to Jordan.
Jordan's a polymath. Like he can just do anything.
Yeah.
I actually think he's like. You ever seen that South Park episode where Jeff Bezos is in it and his head basically just speaks without his mouth moving? That's like Jordan. Like he transcends dimensions.
I'm sure if he's watching this, which I very much hope he is, I'm sure he'll enjoy that little South Park reference. We love a South Park reference, don't we? I think that's probably it for the podcast. No doubt that the next time, maybe not the next time, but the time after next, because the next time you're coming on is the review, isn't it? Of which
I'm back on soon.
You are. This was like not this time last year, but like July last year, wasn't it? Where you came on for the should Daniel Farke be sacked, and then it was the review a week or two later, which I'm just now.
Am I right in saying that I said absolutely no way should he be sacked?
Mate, we in that video, in that podcast, so that was the first time we properly spoke where it wasn't outside Spurs away.
What a night that was. You're definitely the few beers down you, man.
I was just high off the football. I was absolutely buzzing off the football. Yeah. Oh dear. But yeah, that podcast we smashed it. Like I genuinely do not like to big myself up at all, but we absolutely nailed it on that podcast, and I am very smug about that. I remember when I went on the Revere End boys, Billy and Alf, formerly the Revere End, I suppose I should say, really, shouldn't I?
Yeah. R.I.P. Great pod, great lads.
Yeah, but I'm okay with it because we got Alf, and I bloody love Alf. We've got Bill.
Hey, by the way, that was a good acquisition by your talent scout. Who I don't know if that was you. Is the band still going?
Like the band is still going. Yeah.
That is one of my life ambitions, is to see the Revere End band. That is a fact.
That is something we could possibly do together one day. You never know.
Yep. And I don't know if Coop and Duck do live sets, but like I would like to get a Coop and Duck Revere End mashup.
I've seen them on YouTube before. Are they the Norwich? They do Norwich stuff, don't they?
They did the You Go By the Name of Daniel Farke. You remember that song? True Benny, don't score that many. It's a great wee song.
I'll have to check it out.
A few others. No, definitely. Aye, do it.
Fair enough. That's it for the podcast stuff. I do want to. We've seen we've hit the hour mark, so I reckon we'll keep this under 5 minutes. But we have to talk about. Well, it wasn't really big news, was it? It was kind of inevitable. I think those who had their heads switched on realised this is the right decision. But Mario Vrancic and Alex Tettey both are to be released by the end of this season. Both players very interesting, and they signify different sort of stages of the club, different messages, different themes. Alex Tettey,
Interesting. Yeah, very good point.
it is, and Alex Tettey, a guy who is without a doubt a club legend. I don't know if he made it to 10 years or not. He doesn't want a testimonial, which for us is a
He's
damn
not.
shame.
I think it's nine seasons. I think it will be, if I'm right.
It is a massive shame, isn't it? It is a massive shame. Yeah, 9 seasons it must be. But he said he didn't want one, didn't he? Because he's just a humble guy, and that's what I love about him. And he's such a smiling, lovely guy.
His arm, by the way. I think he should be told he's having one. I think he should be given no choice in the matter. I was lucky enough to commentate the Russ and Wes game on behalf of the club channel, and I'd love to do something similar for Alex Tettey. And what I would say is to anyone in that dressing room or who holds sway over Alex Tettey's life, just say to him, "Look, mate, get a grip."
For his life.
Just get a grip and have your moment. Have your moment in the Carrow Road, son. Do you know what, though? To be fair, the pandemic kind of makes it weird, doesn't it? So, you probably couldn't have the occasion that he deserves. And that's what's so sad. And, nothing against Mario Vrancic. It's just a shorter tenure to celebrate. He's given us some incredible memories. One of the best free kick takers in Norwich City history, no doubt. I'd still have Snoddy above him, but that's just maybe national pride coming through. But when you look at Alex Tettey in particular, he deserves his bow, he deserves his moment, you know. And once fans are back in the ground, you've got to invite him back. You've got to do something. There's got to be something commemorative.
Yeah,
and he's such a character, mate. I've never been in a room with an interviewee like him. And you know what was weird, right? You watch him play football and you think of him as this absolute unit. And then you get in a room with him and he's just he's actually quite a kind of young looking face. And a face that kind of sort of belies the type of player he is, I always thought. And what a player he's been for Norwich City. We've had players of much better ability than him, but in terms of his commitment to the cause and memories and, oh my goodness, goals, man. Sunderland in particular springing to mind. I'm just what club legend is one of those phrases that gets bandied about very, very liberally at times. Club legend.
Yeah, Norwich have been lucky in that regard, haven't they? And it's a shame that we won't get to send him off in the same fashion as we did eventually for Russell Martin, for Wes Houlihan, for John Ruddy. I was going to say Grant Holt. We didn't read for Grant Holt, did we? But it's a real shame. But at the same time, it shouldn't taint his time at the club. And Alex Tettey only scores bangers. What a bloody man. Just absolutely love him. Mario Vrancic signifies something different for me at Norwich City. But I don't know about equally, but should be sort of admired in the same way Alex Tettey has been. Because Mario Vrancic, for me, on the pitch, he has played such a pivotal role in 2 championship-winning seasons. You remember 2018, 2019, where that was, I think it was the month of January, won Player of the Month, didn't he, for the whole league, because he was just absolutely rocking it, and he was so good, and he scored some really important goals. Did it again this season towards the beginning. But the thing for me with Mario Vrancic is he sort of sums up this new wave at Norwich City in terms of he cost 650 grand, second tier, or to be the second tier of Germany because he just got relegated with Stuttgart. I can't remember who he came from there, but he'd just been relegated either way. And it's just it was such a bizarre signing. He replaced Johnny Howson. Johnny Howson was a Rolls Royce player who we all loved. I know you absolutely loved. I'll reference the little
Norwich player,
Johnny Howson beat Forest. Well, yeah, yeah, that's fair enough. But we were all nervous about replacing Johnny Howson. And this guy came in with his blue boots, his left foot, his blonde hair. It took him a year to adapt, and then he became quality, didn't he? And we spent most of last season thinking, get Mario Vrancic in, get Mario Vrancic in. And when he played, he was pretty good. I remember Spurs at home, which we also spoke about in the review last year, didn't we? For the wrong reason, in that VAR robbed him of one of the best assists, one of the best passes. Precisely, I echo that sentiment. VAR robbed him of one of the best passes I've ever seen. I mean, it was kind of questionable from Vertonghen, but the pass was ridiculous. And Mario Vrancic, Hodgey, take the floor. Before my knees are wobbling, just say some lovely words about Mario Vrancic.
I think he is a magnificent set-piece taker. I think he's a gifted technician. I think he has limitations which will prevent him
Which is why he's leaving.
Yeah, and they'll prevent him from being a really effective Premier League player. But football's about moments, right? Yeah. Football's about moments. I cannot think of... I can think of one moment as iconic as the Sheffield Wednesday free kick in that title-winning season. But that's probably the moment that encapsulates everything that season was about. A moment of real quality just when it was needed, and yet another sort of at the death. Smash and grab suggests that we didn't deserve it. I don't mean it from that perspective, but it's like just grab the points by the scruff of the neck right at the death of the game and do it with a moment of sheer quality, like almost balletic beauty. And that's Mario Vrancic's football. You remember the moments. Mario Vrancic will be remembered for the moments in his Norwich City career. And there's enough of them that people will remember him.
Yeah. I'm trying to think of what the other goal was, what you were saying. I think it's Blackburn at home, wasn't it? Where you've got Sheffield Wednesday. That's your special moment. That's the importance. And then you've got Blackburn again at home to sort of help reseal promotion. Promotion was inevitable that season, but that goal and that sort of vein of form was just ridiculous. And I will say, I think he was a better free kick taker than Snoddy. I think Snoddy only scored, 2 free kicks for Norwich, maybe 3? Whereas I think Vrancic is in 4 or 5 territory. You've got Leeds, you've got Sheffield Wednesday, you've got Wickham, you've got Brentford in his first season. I think there must be another one in there somewhere abouts. I don't really know, to be honest with you. But Mario Vrancic, and what I think is the beautiful thing about sort of him leaving, and the same with Tettey, I think, as well. And this is where the trust has been built with someone like Stuart Webber. Remember this Webber guy, he came in and the first thing he did was get rid of John Ruddy. And I remember that was a massive thing at the time. But the timing for me is beautiful in that we don't have to see a decline. We don't have to see sort of... I'll stick with the decline. We don't have to see a decline, that maybe is... What am I thinking of? Ungraceful? Is that a word? Ungraceful? That lacks grace.
No.
You see that sometimes, don't you?
I get it. People can end up like just staying too long and it tainting their legacy. Prime example being
legacy. That's the word.
Yeah, Neil Lennon at Celtic this year has undone about 15 years good work by failing to win 10 in a row. I say 15, 20 years good work. So on that basis, I would be quite happy that they're leaving. I also think that if we're looking at this from a football club standpoint, this is a signal of intent of that we're going to recruit, and that we're not going to go with just like we have a solution there. We're going to look to improve the squad. We're also going to look to freshen up the squad. We're going to look to make a squad that is more ready for the Premier League. Mario Vrancic is not a Premier League player. Alex Tettey kind of is, but not in the way that our midfield is built and as an auxiliary defender. And even though he could probably do a job in a way for Norwich City in the Premier League, standing in or doing something, if Alex Tettey's in our starting 11 in the Premier League, we're struggling. So that's my kind of view on it. And I think what this tells you is that it's not ruthless from a sort of in a sick way, but there can be no room for sentiment in football. even though, as fans, of course there is. Thanks,
Yeah.
Tets and Super. That's why I put that wee banner at the bottom, because they're two players that we'll always remember. And for me, particularly Alex Tettey. But I think what this shows you that they're going to town this summer. They're going to have all of that criticism, that nonsense that Martin Samuel wrote about how we didn't have a goal and we should have had a goal. How much have we rammed those words down that gutter snipe's throat? We have totally shown him that, no, do you know what? We will take the bit of money that we get that keeps us running as a club. We'll come back down and then we'll bounce back up even better and ready to go. And do you know what? Our back is to stay up. I said it the last time, but I believe it more this time.
Yeah,
I believe it more this time. I believe it more this time because we're not off the cusp of a fairy tale. We're off the cusp of let's be honest, an amazing championship title winning campaign, but pretty functional. We've played some really good football at times, and we've been the best team in the division, but it feels like we can get better. Whereas 2 years ago, it was that was the limit of that team's powers. You know what I mean? And we flashed it. We flashed it against Man City. We flashed it in a few other games. But we're built to be a more robust unit next year. And getting rid of these two is proof that we're looking to get even better. We're not resting on our laurels. We're going to recruit. We're going to recruit big this summer. I can see I've said it before, I see at least 2 very significant outlays of cash. Not that we're not going to look for value, but if we see someone that we think is right and it's going to cost money to get them, we're not going to shirk that this summer. This is the summer that we go for it. And it's going to be worth it because we're going to stay up.
Yeah, yeah. I'm logically, we should stay up and we should smash it by our standards. I don't know what anyone else's standards would be, but all the sort of pieces are set to fall into place, aren't they? In terms of this idea of the 5-year plan. By the end of the 5-year plan, it was said we'd be in the Premier League, and we're there. And everything makes sense. The finances are healthy. Training facilities are looking pristine, absolutely gorgeous. It just makes sense that this is Norwich City's chance to stay in the Premier League, and given sort of the system and sort of the structure, establish ourselves. This is it. This is our chance. We're not riding a wave. Not at all. Not in the slightest. We have fallen down and we've gotten back up. We've done what Paul Lambert tried to do. We rode a wave, fell down. He's gone AWOL, whereas we have bounced back. And fingers crossed can establish ourselves in the Premier League. We'll be talking about this in a bit more depth, won't we, on the review? I've got you booked in for the second third of the season, which I'm excited for. I'm excited for all of it. We can have a happy discussion about how good Norwich are. Which
I'll just try and remember what happened. My brain's mush.
I've got a lovely little Word document for you that you're gonna love.
That's helpful. That's helpful. Actually, you're really good at preparing that stuff because it makes me look like I know what I'm talking about. The one unfortunate thing for me, it's fortunate and unfortunate, is this season, because I've been commentating so much EFL football, I've not seen quite as many Norwich games as I did before because, essentially I'm commentating like other teams, Wickham, Cardiff, whoever it might be. Did give me the chance to watch Wes Houlihan earlier this season, which was an absolute joy. Yeah. He's mentioned by Alec Neil in my podcast as well, in glowing terms. It's been a really fun season in lots of ways professionally for me, and obviously it's culminated in a Norwich City title win. But this is going to be a big summer. It's going to be a big summer, and I'm definitely happy to come on with you at some point and talk through what we're doing in terms of that, because I'm really excited to see what transpires during this summer in terms of what we do.
Yeah, we love a bit of transfer waffle, don't we? We did that video about Yanulis. Again, we were right. Shock. Imagine my shock. Yeah. Well, always. You know, the day we're wrong is a day of real concern.
Can we do? Remember, we did those. We did transfer expected
the ratings. Yeah, we'll be doing that.
Can we do the third one? Because we've done the halfway stage. and now we can do like the end of season marks, compare them to like our first and second marks.
Yeah.
Let's do
Yeah.
that. Let's do that as well.
Well, we said we were going to, didn't we?
Yeah, you've booked me in twice now. That's like, do you realize how busy I am? No, great, mate. Let's do it. Let's do it.
No, yeah, it
thank you. Thank you for getting me on and allowing me to talk about my podcast and about speaking to Alex Neil, mate. And
that's totally fine. If it wasn't Alex Neil, I wouldn't care, but because it's Alex Neil, I do.
And the kind words that you sent to me in a WhatsApp message were also really gratefully received, mate. And by the way, anyone that sent me a kind message on social media or my personal phone or whatever, thank you. It's like, that's the reason you do this. You do this because people enjoy your content.
Those 5 a.m. nights on Discord, worth it, aren't they? Absolutely worth it.
Mate, how many of them did we have? Like,
unhealthy, honestly, man. Help develop my love for the NBA, but that's for another day.
This is good, and we will visit that in more detail at some point. And then I know, definitely, like, let's do do you know what we could do? What I'd do an NBA watch along at some point.
If it's on your channel, mate, honestly, I would
like, it's not. There's no
more.
Norwich talk element. Like, we'll just do an NBA watch along. Like other people
to be fair, you could probably sneak in the Dallas Mavs as some sort of because I think they are like Norwich. But again, that's for another day. I'll save that for another time because I think that's quite an interesting discussion. But that's
I'm not buying it, but okay. Right.
Hey, once I've convinced you, I'm prepared to embarrass myself. I'm prepared to do that. That's what I do.
Luka Doncic, Jamie Buendia.
Luka Doncic, Buendia. When they're on it, they're on it. Sometimes they're clumsy. Not the Mark Cuban aspect, not at all. We'll pretend that doesn't exist. We have stability. But
Tim Hardaway Jr., Timu Pukki.
You got. I can't be thinking about it now. I think you're spot on. Absolutely love Timmy, by the way. Absolutely love him. But yeah, I think we'll save that for a special day. Save that for a rainy day. But yeah, exciting stuff, Hodgey. We'll see you soon, won't we? For the review. For now, I don't actually think I need to ask you where people can find you because that's what we've been talking about for the last hour. There you go, down there. Make sure you go and give that a watch. Genuinely, a really, really interesting discussion. And Alex Neil, again, I'm a very stubborn person, and I thought I knew Alex Neil. I thought I'd made my assumptions, but they've been blown out of the water. They've been completely changed, and that's due to this little Scottish man next to me right now. And I'm very grateful for it. A very good podcast. Where do you want to be found then? Because you've got Instagram now as well, haven't you? It's just Hodgeythehack for everything, isn't it?
Mate, I've not actually added Instagram to that wee banner there, but you can subscribe to me on Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, and Instagram. Instagram, to be honest, I don't use that much because I'm not very good at it.
I don't use that.
I'm good at other social medias. So Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube are the ones that I'm going to be streaming down and going to be regularly doing stuff down. So if you search for Hodgeythehack, Hodgey, the hack, all one word, as it is, in that wee scroll bar or in my wee name tag thing, then I'm getting really rubbish at the point now. Then you'll be able to find all my stuff if you enjoy it. And mate, thank you so much for letting me come on and talk about stuff because I'm really. This has been the culmination of literally about 8 to 9 months of work. Getting this first podcast on the road, but there is so much more to come, as I've kind of suggested. And working with you guys has been a pleasure. Working with other people that have volunteered to help me has been a pleasure, and just getting such a kind response for the Norwich City fan community and other football fans has been a pleasure. So thank you.
No worries, my man. We'll be seeing you very soon. But for those watching at home, if you've listened to this on Spotify or iTunes, a kind review wouldn't go amiss. I know we get a lot of our listeners on Apple Podcasts, and the reviews on there are very kind. So thank you very much for that. To those on YouTube, a thumbs up. If you've enjoyed the video, leave one. If not, hit the dislike a couple of times. And subscribe as well if you enjoy these videos. We've got a lot to come up. We've got the review where we've got a couple of new faces coming on that I'm very excited for. We've got.
Can we get a sneak peek of who? Or
I want to get them booked in first.
Okay,
but yeah,
I'm excited by the sound of that.
Messages have been sent and replied to. It is now just about scheduling. Which
are you going to be able to get me on with one of the new faces, or am I going with a trusted old head?
You are. I mean, it's a new face for me. Technically, he's been on the channel before, but that was back in the days of Mr. Southwell. So I'm going to say it's a new face, just because this was before the Ambrose days of presenting the channel. But It's a very familiar
The
face to the
dark
Norwich City sphere.
days.
The dark days, the days we don't think about.
Talking of dark days, I look like I'm submerged in a cave, like as if Bin Laden's behind me or
It's
something.
very. I sincerely hope he's not. Although you never know.
I think US Special Forces took care of that particular problem.
Oh, that is absolutely brilliant. Do you know what? In the tags now, I have to put Bin Laden in just to see, just to see if that'll get us a few more views. We never know.
It's getting to that time of night where like my filter's just kind of eroding. Like, it's been a long day.
Hopefully it never comes back, because that was a nice 5 seconds for me there. But yeah, if you've enjoyed the video, a thumbs up would be appreciated. If you could subscribe to the channel as well. If you don't want to, that's fair enough. I don't blame you. But until next time, we'll see you again very, very soon.